Okay, one important thing I did is I took a piece of paper towel and I stuck it down into each intake port. That, when we're cleaning the surface of the head off here, that'll keep stuff from getting down in there. So what I'm going to do, I got one off already. I'm going to peel off this other intake gasket. The new intake manifold has gaskets already built into it. So we'll just toss this aside. I'm going to go ahead and get this all cleaned up, and then we'll pick back up and we will show you how to put the new intake on. Okay, we've got our mounting surface all cleaned up. This is real important because you have O-rings that sit on here and you want that surface to be nice and clean. So now I'm just going to go ahead and pull my paper towels back out of the intake ports. Now we're ready to put our new intake on. The intake has the gaskets integrated into the bottom of the manifold, so you don't have to get any new gaskets because they're built into it. And these are pretty much good for life. I mean, these O-rings aren't going to go bad on you. So what you want to do is just slide it back on. Alright, now on these, I have the bolts snug down, they're not torqued yet. The two bolts that hold the throttle, or I'm sorry, the thermostat housing in, are actually part of the intake bolts. So we got to go ahead and get the thermostat housing on there. The thermostat sits in just like so. The O-ring that comes with it sits right on top of that. And the thermostat housing sits on there. Now the new intake kit comes with a couple spacers. These are made to fit down into the hole, and it just helps keep the thermostat housing aligned. And again, I'm not torquing them yet. Okay, now we got all the bolts in. Next step is to torque them. The new intake manifold comes with this sheet, which explains the torque sequence as well as how much to torque them to. This is actually really important. We got to torque each one to 25 newton meters, which is 18 foot-pounds, and you follow it in this sequence. If you look here, whoop, that's the same setup. So we start with number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and you just work your way all the way up. All right, you got the torque wrench dialed in. This is an inch-pound torque wrench, so we had to convert foot-pounds to inch-pounds, which is 216 inch-pounds. We're going to start with the number 1 here. That's torqued. All right, we've got the intake all torqued down. Next step, we got to put our fuel rail back on. I went ahead and put the injectors back in already. And I also put a light coating of a silicone lubricant on the end of each O-ring just to help everything fall back into place. All you do is line it all up, make sure each injector is lined up with its bore. You just push down on it and you'll feel it seat in place. You know, I should have put the coils on first. No, I still can. I went a little out of order and didn't put the coils on yet, but that'll be our next step. I'll go ahead and drop each coil back into its hole there. Now the new intake comes with 8 self-threading bolts. These are for holding the coil packs down. The old intake had a metal insert which was known to start spinning and it would cause all kinds of problems, so these come with self-tapping bolts that go right into the intake. So make sure you use these when you're installing the coil packs onto the new intake. Alright, we got all the coils tight. I'm just tightening down the last bolt for the injector fuel rails. Yeah, you just want to make sure the injectors are all seated in there before you tighten these down, and then just snug them down. Alright, now we're going to put this bracket back on. Again, it sits just like so. We got one bolt that goes in the back here, and another bolt that goes up top. So we're going to snake it in. Try to. Oh, okay, yeah, it's right down in here. How in the world? There it goes. All right. All right, I'm going to start by getting the bolt that was on the back. We're going to get this started in there. All right, we're just going to plug all these back in now. All right, all we got to do now is put the throttle body back on. So we're going to put that on, get the bolts tight, and get all the electrical and vacuum connectors back onto there. All right, we got the throttle body all bolted down. I'm just continuing to put back all the vacuum lines. And all my brackets and all the various stuff that had to come off for the intake. Okay, now we've got pretty much everything reattached. I'm going to go ahead and reconnect the fuel lines. These are really simple. You don't even need the tool to put them back on. You just push them on and you'll feel them snap in place. Once that happens, they don't come off. Put the safety clip back on. Now those are done. Next, we're going to put the alternator on. The new intake kit comes with a new alternator bracket because the mounting points are slightly different on this metal one versus the original plastic one. First thing I'm going to do is line up the alternator. Go ahead and get it on its bottom two bolts down there. Now it actually comes with two different brackets. Reason for that is that this intake manifold actually fits a bunch of different applications. And only one of these will fit on yours. I think the Mustang and the town cars are different. So we'll try this one. And that looks like it's going to be a good fit, but just to verify, I'm going to try this one as well, which does not fit. The bolts just don't line up. So we'll just put this one aside. And we're going to use this bracket here. Lines up like so. Don't torque these bolts down yet. You want to tighten the bottom two first. Just get these started. Okay. And with those started, just tighten down the two bolts at the bottom. Okay, last thing before we add coolant, I'm just going to put the air ducting back on. Now one thing I did, I left this little plug loose on purpose because when I top off the coolant, I'm going to use that as the bleeder. So we don't want to tighten that yet. I've got everything else tight, the coolant temp sensor, the alternator's in there, everything's in there. I just got to tighten this down and fill her up with coolant. What I'm going to do is I'm going to leave this out as I add coolant, and then once the coolant gets to this point, that'll mean the system's bled. The coolant's all the way up through the cylinder heads. Alright, so we got everything all bolted back on. Last thing we're going to do, we're just going to top off the coolant, put our stopper back into the intake, and then we're going to get her fired up and she should be good to go. No more coolant leak, and this car is probably good for another 100,000 miles. So just keep autopartsdirectyou.com in mind next time you need something, and thanks for watching.